Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here. And what truly is a wonderful Wednesday, and we get a chance to share things off as scheduled. I don't know why our good friends from the National Weather Service, months in advance, had scheduled today. Did they know something? Well, when we come back, let's find out. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks so much for joining us here today. And as we get started for a moment of seriousness, I want to say thanks especially to God for keeping us safe, to all of our wonderful team, not just across the civil service, but the entire country, who calmly and responsibly sort of set out for those who are sort of in the areas served by the Water Authority. We see their crews were out, from, earlier and now until very late, all through the night and into the sunrise, making sure people's waters were, back up and running. So it's a country, and I'm equally glad that I'll do my best not to make a joke about it, as I tried at the outset. We had this discussion slated with the National Weather Service for, must have been about 4 years ago now, scheduled for today. So the Director General, Mr. John Tibbetts, I have to ask, sir, as I welcome you to the studio, did you know that yesterday, on the eve of your appearance today, you have something so fantastic to talk about?
Rule number 1, you never know when an earthquake is coming.
So they tell me. But good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much. And I can only imagine that now you have even more on your plate. But thanks again for the continued initiative in relation to what I think hopefully will show parents and teachers, as we talk to our students or children about careers in weather, as it were, that we can be like John Foster or we can be like John Tibbetts. I know the one I would follow.
Well, the interesting part about it is that I ended up going to a finance committee back in November of last year, and they asked a very technical question, as it were, and I was able to intimidate the politicians. They were scrambling. No! Please don't make him bring the science in the finance committee. So. But the question that was being asked is an item that would come up as part of a public education program. So from the National Weather Service, I've got a team of 2 officers. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Carrie Forbes, our latest addition to the team. She will be promoted to become a weather forecaster as of February the 1st, our first female weather forecaster in the Cayman Islands. The second member of the team is an old stalwart, Mr. Dwayne Ebanks, and the 2 of them are generating public education articles every month, and they shoot them out to various media bodies, and they put it out on Facebook and everything like that, and just to spread the word and to teach people a little bit more about meteorology and what have you.
Well, I'm certainly very, very honored that you would be so willing to bring on our program today and share, and I'm hoping that not only through the public education, not only through the forecasting, like by Ms. Forbes, increasingly through your tenure here within the civil service, generally speaking, we'll get an opportunity to, with your colleagues, to talk more about the weather. Now, I'm not as enthusiastic as my brothers and the rest of the family. I thought your technical question to the finance committee would have been, what is rain? But see, that would have probably been the extent of mine. But it is amazing, and even yesterday, in a sense, I guess earthquakes and weather, part of the growing phenomenon, and intrigues people, right, Ms. Carey?
Yes, that's right.
All right, so good afternoon. Welcome. Any initial sort of thoughts you may want to share with us at all? And congratulations, not just for making history, but for pursuing a passion and hopefully serving as a continuing example for all of our students, or male and female students across, that they can pursue the sciences as they can the finance. They can merge the two they can make a lot of money, they can make a great contribution. Just follow their passion and put their intellect to work.
Yes, that's right.
There you go. But Mr. Tibbetts, we'll take lead from you. For some of us, the weather is just, well, for me, there's an economic impact of the weather. It's going to delay, certain things. It's going to impact the construction of the project. Is it going to hinder maybe the boat leaving the harbor? And so will the goods get to that time, and will that be a knock-on cost? Or is the weather such that there is something that now is going to require an insurance claim, potentially affecting the premiums? I mean, those sort of implications for me are, those are what I think of. Is the weather not enough rain? Too much rain is going to affect the crops, and so therefore, the commodity traders. But for others, it's, wow, look at those clouds. And they take photos of them and the cumulonimbus, spectrumus maximus.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
He's pulling out fancy cloud names on me.
I got it from Susan earlier. But they fascinate people, just the formations, and it means certain things. And we think back to, I guess, our older seafarers who could look at clouds and they know that particular cloud is going to mean that this particular thing is probably going to happen. The chances are they're right. Now you guys got technology and computer modeling to say, yeah, this is it with a high degree of probability. How far we have come, Ms. Forbes?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's. I think people need to realize that in 2010 we became officially a Cayman Islands National Weather Service.
Mm-hmm.
Up until that time, we were a special branch that provided meteorological information for pilots and the aviation sector.
Mm-hmm.
And by no means have we gotten rid of our aviation roots. Aviation still represents close to about 60% of what we do. And if you're wondering what that means, you need to realize that for every plane that travels out of here or comes into this country, they need aviation weather observations that my staff take every hour, and they also take what we call special observations. Okay. On top of that, people like forecasters like Ms. Forbes here are producing what we call aviation forecasts. So when I give you the forecast and you're doing the general public forecast, the general public forecast would say it's going to be partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers. All right. But carrying them, they have to come up with an aviation forecast. So rather than saying partly cloudy, we would say we're going to have scattered clouds at 1,800 feet. All right, and that is more of an aviation type product. Okay. So there are a lot of things that we're doing in aviation, but again, when we in 2010 became a national weather service, we started to build out from the aviation section. And we've had meetings with the farmers and the agricultural society and look at the things that we're doing for them and that we can do for them in the future. Okay?
It's amazing. Sometimes maybe because of the particular magazines we subscribe to. Some of us actually still spend money subscribing to magazines. Believe it or not, we get them delivered and they become collector's items after we read them. I think there's like 4 of us left. Well, 3.5. And when we think perhaps there's a particular government launching a satellite under the guise of it's going to assist with agriculture and weather forecasting, and it may have other benefits as well. Who knows, right?
Correct.
But you've seen that sort of investment in technology, allowing the weather forecasting. We even see buoys. I don't call them boys, so maybe there's a different word. Being positioned across that, the oceans to check for tides and the like, and maybe even giving us a little heads up on potential movements.
Correct.
That could, just like we're doing for hurricanes, could help us to look at what we had yesterday, a little bit more timely. If I had the intellect of you guys, maybe I'll get into weather as well. But I don't know. We'll stay where we are.
Well, the interesting part about it is that when you get into Ms. Forbes' story about how she got here and stuff like that, my contention is that she came through the difficult route. And what I mean by that is that she didn't come through mainstream meteorology. She went overseas and got a bachelor's degree in physics. And that's the part that usually intimidates and scares people quite a bit.
So you work for it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Most of my friends just go online and they order it. Sorry.
But the interesting part then you see is that she then came back and she goes like, what is a bachelor's in physics? What kind of job can it get me? And then sometimes you need to come to other organizations that are scientific in nature and have conversations with them and see where you can fit in.
Right.
So in her case, we offered her an internship to come in and to see what we do and to see how comfortable and how much she would enjoy it. And she fell in love and she decided to stay. And since she has a bachelor's degree in physics, we could fast track her to becoming a weather forecaster, which she has now completed. And she's just wanting to complete the checkout process.
All right. If it's okay with you, Ms. Forbes, if it's okay, maybe we could talk about that journey, as Mr. Tibbetts shared.
Okay.
We'll talk about the Public Education Initiative and guide it. And in all seriousness, I love the fact that in this society, two things are evident. We like the weather, even those of us who pretend we don't like it as much or don't understand it. We like the weather, and even the discussions emanating from me yesterday. I won't get into that just yet, but some of the things are weather-related, development-related, population, political, and socioeconomic, but undergirded by implications of weather. Moving too much sun, what would I do for potential things? Filling in, weather. There's rain, but also, maybe share with you, if you would, your experience, your education. Hopefully, it'll encourage others to realize that, you like math and physics. There's a lot that you can utilize it, not just in the financial district, as it were. Would that be fine?
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to that. We'll pause. We'll take a break, but we want to come back and be a part of a discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just two of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
Go Cocoa Nuts with Cocoa Fest at Pedro Castle on February 8th from 12 to 6 p.m. Indulge in all kinds of coconut things. Coconut-inspired food, treats, fresh coconut water, crafts, games, music, and more. Admission is only $5 and free for kids under 6. Proceeds from each entry fee benefit Meals on Wheels Cayman. So if you like coconut, come to Cocoa Fest at Pedro Castle February 8th. For event details, check us out on Facebook. This ad is sponsored by Fidelity Bank. We're good for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And thanks again to the Director General of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, Mr. John Tibbetts, and with one of his colleagues, Ms. Carol Forbes, for joining us. I like how you said, man, history in the making. And it's amazing that, I guess in a sense, it's still a frontier land. Perhaps Caymanians don't see this as such, maybe because we see that to be derogatory, but that means we can blaze the trails. People can come here from elsewhere and be the first to do something officially, recognized in this country. That's not possible in many places for obvious reasons, but we can still do that here, and it's important. If I may say, Ms. Forbes, people not just of your acumen and your intellect, but your, obviously wonderful disposition. If those are the examples that we have to follow, wow, the bar is set high, and we can only recognize what they say, rising tide, Mr. Tibbetts. Means that fish probably biting. That's a saying, right?
Yep.
All right. We were asking prior to the break if you would share your sort of educational pursuits and the path as Mr. Tibbet shared, a bit non-traditional. So tell us about it.
Okay, so I've been interested in math and science, and so I went to pursue a degree in physics, and so after I finished, I decided, okay, now I need to decide what field I'm going to be in. So I came across meteorology, and I thought, okay, let me try an internship there. Mm-hmm. So I did the internship, and like you said, I loved it, and decided, okay, I need to get further training in meteorology specifically. So I did that, and now, thankfully, I'm being geared to be a forecaster now at the end of this month. So
wow, yeah. Which is, what today is the 29th? Uh-huh. And this is a leap year, but January still only has 31 days. That doesn't change, right? I don't know why we make a big deal. It doesn't matter. You see, you imagine if today was a Wednesday, what it would be like. But with that, though, if I may ask again, certainly with your sort of acquiescence, but equally true, Mr. Tibbet as well, so we do it properly. What aspect of it, you've could have gone anywhere with the obvious passion you have, the obvious, determination and abilities, and you've found a wonderful affinity for your field. What passion that drew you? What part in particular drew you to meteorology?
I think it's probably the field of science that I decided to go in, which is physics, which is wanting to understand the way that the world works. Okay. And so I guess meteorology was then, geared more towards one topic then.
Okay. If I may ask then, and this is just me from perception, those are my friends who are sort of scientists in their minds and more science-based. They like the factual. They'll have a particular hypothesis, and they want to test it, and they want to make sure, and they'll come back, and there are known quantities, and they can control for the variables and do different things. For economics, there are a lot of probability if you look at the probative aspect of it, and it's subjective, not as science as it were. But I gather meteorology is becoming a part art, a lot more science. So from that, then, with the science aspect and that scientific sort of mindset that you have, is it then that you want to get to a point, hopefully, with the field industry getting to that point where science becomes the basis for it, and the high degree of being able to predict, and I carefully use that word, but deliberately, okay, we're going to have this weather phenomenon, and here's a higher probability that it's going to occur. No longer can we give you a 3-day forecast, but here's the next 3 months. You're going to have a sunny day for 4 hours on, April the 10th between, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., for argument's sake. I mean, that's the future of Buck Rogers in the 21st century. Yes, I did watch that. Is it then, how do you balance the science and the scientific inquiry with, what still is subjective to an extent?
Okay, so I guess for now, I guess we're really trying to improve a short day, I guess like a 3-day forecast, making sure it's has as much supportive evidence. Mm-hmm. But I think further out, like you said, the 30-day forecast, I think it will always be still just an estimate because the atmosphere is just so fluid. It can change probably like hour to hour, So at least that might still be not as high a probability as the 3-day forecast, but still.
Yeah. I like your word fluid, and if this was the end of the day and we weren't in public radio, I would probably attempt to make a joke that the atmosphere is as fluid as, the potential government after the last election, but we're not going to see that kind of joke today. I would not do that.
You're treading on some interesting territory there.
Yeah, I mean, just thought, but I wouldn't venture there today.
But let me just say something. I think one of the things that I think there are two things that I gotta mention here. Mm-hmm. Number one, all right, I think one of the things that helped Kerry come into our organization and get comfortable and learn and enjoy the science itself is the staff. Mm. Okay,
yeah, that's true.
I think they're a very nice, enjoyable set of staff. we are very comfortable and we're very relaxed and laid back. So we're not like an accountant office where you just come in and you just sit down at the desk and your head is down. Not like that. But I think the atmosphere is one that's conducive to making people comfortable and enjoy the science. Yeah. Okay. I think the second part with Kerry is that as the director, my path, my suggested path for her career, as it were, would have been at this particular point to work more on settling in, getting comfortable, getting used to producing those forecasts and those products on time and what have you. And yet, Kerry is already moving beyond that. All right, she's working. Normally, the forecast is produced up to a 5-day forecast. All right, and then we've got the climate department that looks at 2 and 3 month forecasts and stuff like that, and they're called climate bulletins. And Kerry is already helping out with the climate bulletins. Okay, so I think she's come in, she's accepted the challenge, and she's stepping forward with it. And basically, the sky is the limit.
You create a nurturing environment. It's
Correct.
still in a sense of, that, like you say, the sky is the limit. And whether you forecast is for the ceilings, for those, aviation experts, or whether it's just us, the sort of fishing enthusiasts, you've created a reliable product, an accessible product, and one that we see only, great things here, the credibility, but also the competence of your team. Ms. Forbes, who knows, the next Director General, maybe looking at her. Come on, Mr. Tibbetts, you and I have to retire at some point, right?
Yeah, well, and to be honest with you, I right now I have a succession plan that I've already got. Basically, 2 people. I can walk out of that office today and retire, and those people can run that weather service. Okay. And given when you start to look at the age structure, the organization and stuff like that, she's in a very good position to one of these days become a Director General. Yeah. Now, obviously, Kerry in her young age now as just becoming a forecaster would not see that. All right, but what happens 10 years down the road?
That's right.
You know?
That's something I did not want to say that in part jest, but when you talk to you, Mr. Power and others, the idea that you're looking at succession planning, continuity organization, the upward continued training of the team, because for us as a nation, however people want to define that, it's important that we have the resources and the resilience to be able to not just contribute to the global community, but also make sure that what we have here, we can now access it and figure out where we are. It's an honor, truly, to speak to Mr. Tibbetts and Ms. Forbes. We do have
just one thing, and that is, and I'm not going to look at another organization or anything of that sort, but I'll look at the National Weather Service, and I will tell you that, generally speaking, when people talk about succession planning, it's usually, how are we going to be able to replace the boss when he retires? At the National Weather Service, succession planning involves every single staff member to move up from an entry-level observer to a mid-level tech, to a junior forecaster, to a senior forecaster, to a manager, whatever it is. There is a succession planning at that level. But there's also succession planning with regards to people that provide specialist skills. I have mentioned Mr. Avalon Porter there, who is brilliant with computers as well as his forecasting and climatological skills. And you sit down and you wonder, well, if Avalon Porter was to retire tomorrow, who would step into his shoes?
Susan. Oh, sorry. No.
But I think you get my idea. There succession planning in all the various kind of ways and that can happen in that weather service.
Yeah. I come in with that. We do have a caller online, Mr. Tibbetts, Ms. Forbes, as we enjoy the discussion about the Canada's National Weather Service. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah,
Okay, we're just having a challenge with that caller. And perhaps I can beg Miss Susan to quickly. I don't know. Maybe it's my headset. Maybe it's all of the rumbling from
I couldn't pick it up.
Oh, okay. But she's gonna fix it up. I think what happened is that she's gonna go across the. I won't even venture to make that joke because, it's still too early.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble.
It's still too early. But it's about looking at where you are. Let's try it again. Do apologize for that, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
I've heard all the discussion on the scientific weather forecasting and the technology and all of this other stuff. I wonder, does the sun dog or circle around the sun or circle around the moon figure into any of this?
The halo around the sun.
Yeah.
Okay. The halo around the sun usually indicates that you've got moisture in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And we in the National Weather Service, whenever we see a halo, it's usually representative of a cloud that we would observe, and it's called cirrostratus. So it is an indication of moisture in the upper levels. There are other implications of it at times. Like there may be a storm that's nearby, and the cirrostratus clouds are coming off of that area of thunderstorms or whatever it might be. I'm sure some of the old fishermen have some other thoughts in it as well.
Yeah, how about the sun dog? Hello?
Yes, sir.
No, the sun dog.
Well, for me, what is that? There's a sundial, I know. What is that? What does that mean, sir?
Sun dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
I've heard the terminology before, but I really have to refresh my memory on that. Which one? How do you define a sundog, if you pardon me?
Well, it is a formation, and usually, well, I think you can. It's viewable night and day, but you just look up into the sky, and it's usually bedded in a clear, a clear surrounding.
Okay, it's something that I'll have to research, and I get back to you on a later show or something like that. Okay.
How about water in the well?
Is that? Yeah, I
don't recognize that terminology. Sorry, sir.
Well, I think that the water in the well will follow its path away back around to the moon, which also I think probably has some effects on weather.
To what extent then do you think, and I think back to celestial navigation in particular, and some of maybe the times we're out fishing, you just even in the North Sound with our parents or our grandparents, and they're out and about, and they're looking at the clouds, they're looking at the sun, and if it's at even the moon, and they're able to tell us. To what extent do you think those sort of, I don't want to say anecdotal, but those sort of generational things that are passed on are influencing our knowledge, or B, maybe being passed into obscurity?
Well, I think they're being passed into obscurity because they're really not being used enough, but they served a great purpose. They served the Cayman Islands, I can speak of that, very, very, very efficiently.
So like
yeah, I mean that, and the barometer.
Yeah.
The barometer, which was, the key weather indicator here in Cayman, probably up through when did the weather station come in here? 50, 56, 55?
Around 50s, mid-50s.
Yeah.
So like things like what we hear, ring around the moon, bad weather soon, ring around the sun, bad weather done. Those sort of things you grew up hearing aren't just little nice sayings. They're actually, you think, sufficiently.
They had significance. They had significance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and generally speaking, the scientists we take them into consideration. We just don't refer to them in the same kind of terminology.
Mm. So I guess.
Okay, well, I was just curious. You also got another one, the tide on a reef. But anyway, I'll leave you with that.
Yeah. Well, pass them along, because I think Saturday is not only that like many things, we replace the old with the new, without really appreciating the value of what that thing contributed for centuries.
Well, I'd be honest with you, I'd be very, very interested in them, and we could put those in as part of our public education program, and include some of those kind of things. It's not just about modern day science, but it's also some of the things that people can relate to, because some of the maybe elderly members of society and stuff like that would recognize that kind of terminology and stuff like that, so they can relate to whatever we're talking about.
Well, I think too, as we go to the break, what's the poem? Risk at night, sailor's delight. Like it may be seen by the more advanced, developed world that these practices are primitive, but yet we see from what we're told through research that navigator out in the South Pacific, who may be from a primitive tribe, has more brain capacity,
correct,
than somebody sitting in Wall Street at some point in time doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah,
but
well, that's kind of like I noticed he mentioned a barometer, and I remember that when I became a weather forecaster and was working in the weather service, I would remember that at midday. Usually you're doing your midday weather statement and stuff like that, and they would call the weather service and collect the weather information. One of the things is the barometric pressure, and we would give you the value of the barometric pressure and whether it's rising or falling. And some of the DJs used to have this saying, basically, is that, well, the pressure's falling, so it's going to rain. Okay. Well, pressure has a cycle. Okay, and probably about 90% or more of the time around midday, the pressure is falling. And if you just have that same rule in there that pressure's falling, so you're gonna have rain, then every single afternoon we're supposed to get rain.
Yeah, doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Right.
But the old time sailors used to be able to look at falling pressure, and you look at it over a day, 2 days, and especially if you got a big storm system coming, then the pressure will start to decrease days in advance.
Right. That's something you alluded to today, but you shared in the past, that your observers physically get up from their desk, go outside and look, and some of us can still smell, the rain coming. There's a taste in there, there's a smell. I mean, even I tempted to go to another joke, but man. What?
You sound like you're very jokey today.
Hey, listen. Got to give thanks, man. Mr. Tibbetts, respectfully, we got to pause and take a break. I'll share the joke with you after, but no, I won't say that either. All right, when we come back, let's continue the discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Can you imagine where Cayman runs off renewable energy? We can. Learn how you can join government and be an energy advocate.
Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page to learn more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us here, and really truly grateful to the Cayman Islands National Weather Service for the continued public education initiative, and the Director General, Sir Don Tibbetts. In partnership with Radio Cayman in particular, we've had a chance from time to time, hopefully continue on a regular basis, but for a while in a way, have your team on board to share with us. So very grateful, and equally for Ms. Carrie Forbes for coming along today and sort of a debut, as it were.
Debut.
A debut? No, that's not good enough. We should have done more than that. Susan, where's the look?
You don't have some fireworks or some?
That's what I was thinking.
A drum roll or something?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we could work that on that. Let me see if I can put it in the budget.
Well, to be honest with you, this month's public education article, which is on the Sea State and what have you, was completed by Miss Forbes. So we're very excited about a particular element of it. And I'd let Ms. Forbes get into it, and it has to do with how we look at marine advisories and stuff like that. So can you tell them about the concept, please?
Okay. So the topic of the month was Sea State. So that's looking at the conditions of the sea concerning local wind waves and swells. And when analyzing when analyzing the sea state, we have it includes given wave heights and the possibility of swells. And wave heights then are categorized into, for example, slight, moderate, rough, and extremely rough. And they have associated statements. So, for example, moderate to rough would have a statement saying small craft caution. So then that is a small craft marine statement saying that it impacts small marine vessels. But now, as John has introduced, is that we're not only concerning these statements to vessels, but to sea bathers as well, letting them know with each wave height terminology, slight, moderate, rough, there is a precaution associated with it. So we have the small craft marine advisory statement and a marine warning statement that goes according to moderate, rough, and very rough.
I wonder to what extent, and again, not necessarily for today's discussion, but man's impact on an environment. And let's say, not to be controversial, let's say, we're dredging along the coastline, we're maybe extending out into the water to do other things to accommodate passage of ships and marine access and what have you. I think, again, it could be totally, remember this incorrectly, but I think back to as a boy in the North Sound, on the roughest day it was all calm. And now, on the calmest day, it's like, a gorge on fire. It's just rough. That seems to be my recollection. I can sit by the dock on a Christmas day with a nice nor'wester and barely get a salt spray in your face. And no, boy.
Yeah, I think I don't think enough people look at it and realize how much mankind, through various actions, impact things like winds and waves and stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
The fact is that if you do dredging and you do make the water deeper, closer to shore, you actually create the situation where larger waves can come right to the shore. Okay. We also need to realize that we've got a patterns in everything in meteorology. We know about when our dry season is going to be, and we know when our wet season is going to be. I mean, we even know that, generally speaking, probably 90% of the time we get our first cold front in the last week of November. In October. Okay? So we've got these patterns, but we've also got patterns in winds and waves and currents and everything like that as well. So, for example, during the summer months, the wind direction, prevailing wind direction, has a tendency to be more east-southeast. Okay, and it's usually lighter in the summer. And in the winter months, when you're getting all these big high-pressure systems coming down and what have you, we get a lot of northeast winds. And a lot of them, they have a tendency to be a bit stronger than the summer winds. And all of these things impact the wave patterns around the country, currents, and even the movement of sand and what have you. Okay. And when you look at those patterns, and you want you to correlate one thing, and that is you look out there at that beautiful 7 Mile Beach, and that beautiful 7 Mile Beach exists because of one particular reason, and that is the least prevalent wind direction you have is from the west. Okay, so the west coast has a tendency to be the sheltered coast in Cayman. It is a typical pattern across most Caribbean islands. Most Caribbean islands have sandy west coast and rocky east coast. Okay, and it has to do with that prevailing type wind and pattern as we have. Now, whenever you go and mess with any of that, whether it's dredging out a section or even building too close to the sea, you will impact the wind and wave pattern and impact the transport of silt and sand on that 7 Mile Beach.
I mean, something I guess why we all probably enjoyed science, maybe one of the reasons, you get to do experiments. And I remember one, even in high school and even in university, where I don't remember what it was for and which class and whatever, but there's this big thing of water, trough of water, and you put, I call it sticks, but they put stuff into it and it flows. And then you put these things in it and you just, I guess there's a correlation between the diameter of these things and the size of the body of water. And how those things alone can affect the movement. Right, Miss Forbes? Yeah. I was in absent that day. I'm sure I was there.
You could have been a meteorologist.
No. Some things you just know you couldn't be. Meteorologist and handsome. I got that covered. but it's amazing how you start to see how what you do can affect things, and I guess New Orleans, Louisiana was starting to appreciate the things that they did way back when, affecting potentially their economic base with respect to the sea and the seafood that comes out of there. But again, you put something in the water, it can have its impact on it, even though it may not seem to be large in diameter. Yeah, enough for them.
Well, that's why you're talking about. We're talking about the winds and the waves in this case.
Not the birds and the bees, people.
Not the birds and the bees.
That's tomorrow's show.
Which I won't be here for, but anyway. But when you're talking about the winds and the waves, and you're also talking about things like rainfall totals and what have you, one of the kind of things that we've had as a problem in the past, and that is National Weather Service would go out there and we'd measure 3 to 4 inches of rainfall for a particular time, pardon me. And what would happen is that, so we re-announce it, hey, we measured 3 to 4 inches of rainfall this afternoon, and a farmer out in the East Coast goes, what? Where'd that 3 to 4 inches go? Because he didn't get a drop.
Yeah.
All right. And so people need to realize that when the National Weather Service, at this particular point, when we say we have a particular measurement, it is at Owen Roberts Airport. And there is variation across the islands in rainfall and wind and temperature, everything across the board. And we're trying to close that gap. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to install an automatic weather station at the airport. All right, and we're trying to work with some of our stakeholders to get some extra things like air pollution and stuff like that in there. So, and the following year, we're going to add 4 or 5 automatic weather stations around the Cayman Islands. So we will be able to start to tell you what that temperature reading is, what that wind reading is, what that rainfall reading is, perhaps in West Bay or East End or North Side or what have you. So the information will become more applicable. In terms of the winds and the waves, we have some weather buoys coming, and those are coming next year. The plan is to put one of the weather buoys out somewhere nearby Stingray City, so that the stakeholders that are going out there to take tourists out there, or whenever anybody wants to go out there and visit the site, they would have an indication in advance what the winds and waves are in that area.
Well, I commend you for leveraging our technology. I mean, we have an election year coming up. We can put in place some wind gusts. I mean, you're going to see a lot of stuff happening.
You don't know about all my toys yet, because those weather buoys I'm relying on the Department of Environment and the Little Cayman Marine Institute to help me design those weather buoys. So those weather buoys are not only going to have what I want on it, it's going to have some of the stuff that they want and they need as well.
Well, looking forward to it, and I am correct in that show on the birds and bees, but not tomorrow. It's the agriculture show is coming up, and we talk with our farmers.
That's the birds and bees.
Yeah, because they're important to our, ecosystem, but they're also important to our food security. So you see, we have shows covering again weather for agriculture.
Well, I might have to be back for that one then, because we'll be there for the agriculture show.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking you were on it. You were doing a presentation. But as we certainly publicly invite you all to come back on again as often as we can in order to make sure that we have this discussion. Any sort of parting words, Ms. Forbes, you may want to share with our listeners, if you wish one? No? Okay. That's all right. It happens all the time, It happens all the time. Well, Mr. Tibbetts, it's a pleasure. And maybe for me, because everybody else probably understands it better, but whenever anything's being reported in relation to the country, I always give me how far that is away from Cayman. Little Cayman, Grand Cayman, anywhere from Cayman. Where it is in relation to anywhere else, it don't really matter. If it's off East End, that's good. Off West Point, that's cool. Tell me where it is in relation to Cayman. That way I understand. But for those of us who speak in a different language, put it in relation to the Cayman Islands. That way we understand.
Yeah, we have that kind of discussion, especially with storms.
Yeah.
And our rule is simply this, and that is, anytime you hear the National Weather Service starts to quote Cayman, watch out. Okay, it's definitely a threat to you at that time, but it makes no sense to tell you it's from so far from Cayman, it's way out in the Atlantic Ocean or something like that, right at that point. I don't want to scare you.
If it's 10,000 miles away from Cayman, or it's 10 inches, that makes sense because you see catching my attention. It could be 15 miles from somewhere close to, it don't really matter.
Yeah.
Put me in relation to where I am at.
Right.
There we go, sir.
No problem.
But thank you very much. And truly, again, always an honor. Congratulations, Ms. Forbes. May your continued tenure be filled with great joy and accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll pause and we'll take a break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access to information.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
The Cayman Islands Health Services Authority would like to advise their patients that any appointments missed or cancelled on the afternoon of Tuesday, January 28, 2020, due to the earthquake will be rescheduled. HSA will contact patients individually, or patients, you may call them at 949-8600. The HSA would like to thank their patients for their understanding and apologize for any inconvenience caused. Good afternoon. I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, the helicopter carrying Kobe Bryant didn't have a long-recommended warning system to alert the pilot he was too close to the ground, but it is not clear whether it would have averted the foggy weather crash, investigators and other experts say. At issue is what's known as a Terrain Awareness and Warning System, or TAWS, which would have sounded a cockpit alarm if the aircraft was in danger. While the cause of the wreck that killed the former NBA superstar, his 13-year-old daughter, and the 7 others aboard Sunday is still under investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board may again recommend that helicopters with 6 or more passenger seats be required to have such equipment. And European Union leaders and legislators started bidding farewell to the United Kingdom today, mixing warm words of love with hard-headed warnings to the country not to seek too many advantages during upcoming trade talks on a future relationship. The European Parliament was poised to overwhelmingly approve the departure of the UK from the EU later today, the final major decision in the 4-year Brexit saga. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
We are Radio Cayman, and this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Come on, everybody, stand up and sing one more. Hallelujah, give your praise to the Lord. United in Jesus Christ, we are the soldiers of the land.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
There's a meeting up in heaven. Roll call. It's a name in the Lamb's Book of Life. Roll call, brother, sister. Roll call. If you don't stop shouting, if you don't stop dancing, we gon' put you out of our church.
Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Your song flowed through my lips. Your work moved through my hands. Your thoughts stay on my mind. Live in me.
Do you stand for Christian family values? Do you support Caymanian democracy? If you answered yes, then join Cayman Cause in association with the Christian Association of Civics, Cayman Ministers Association, and Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists on Sunday, February the 2nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the Legislative Assembly in Georgetown. Learn the truth about the recent appeals court ruling and its impact on the marriage laws and Cayman society. Speakers include the Right Honorable Dame Joan Sawyer, Mrs. Katina Anglin, along with musical performances and light refreshments. For transportation, call 917-2985 or email caymancause@gmail.com. Stand for Christian Values 2020, Sunday, February the 2nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the Legislative Assembly in Georgetown.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us. And it really is a pleasure, to see how life goes on sometimes. I'm glad to know that we can be a part of it to continue the effort and initiative and join with our friends at the National Drug Council. Gents, special good afternoon to you. Mr. Evan McLean together with Mr. Simon Miller. Always a pleasure, gents. Always a pleasure.
I have to thank you for having us, sir.
Well, it's amazing how some days you sit and you reflect, and then in that pensive state you may become philosophical, and other times yes. You may be so exhausted and consumed that you don't even bother to think anymore. You just veg out. Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be tomorrow. Today we work. I know that it's an initiative as part of the biannual sort of National Drug Use Survey, and it's been informative, been instructive. And I think as we create the platform, that there's this expectation of the data being accessible and collected in a format that is scientific. Yes. Mr. Miller, it bodes well for future study, but also for informed policy.
Absolutely, sir. Policies and programs, and we keep stressing that it's information that is not only used by the National Drug Council, but several departments, agencies, non-profits, you name it. So it's a vital part for us nationally.
Mm-hmm. From that perspective, for those who may be unaware, and perhaps some still reeling from the aftershocks of yesterday, don't say that lightly, because it's, too soon to joke about it. Sorry, they've been joking about me all day. Guess I should join into the fold. What is the drug use survey? Tell us about it. Sisters, what is it?
The National Drug Use Students Drug Use Survey is an understanding of trends that are new trends, established trends. It covers one's experience, one's knowledge, and about the use, the availability, and exposure to drugs as a student. Yeah. Within the age groups of 10, the 7 and 8 years, 7 and 8, and which is 10 to 13 years old, and then 9 to 12. So you're looking at 14
So
up to
that
16 years old.
middle school,
So-
high school kind of,
Yes,
kind of, I guess, timeline when we're in formal education,
Yes.
mandatory education.
Yes. So this gets to look at what a student knows and or experienced, and in doing that, we have a legitimate understanding of what is and what could be. When we have that, it is that we design and continue to function programs in a preventive, informative, and corrective fashion. So that's what the Sisters is about.
So from that perspective,
Some
then,
of what it's
yeah, is it that it'll cover all three, the entire country?
Yes. We're studying 4,016 students. That is actually who the study population is. 1,317 of those fall into the 7 and 8 grade or year, and the rest is 9 to 12. We start out, as a matter of fact, Monday morning. Monday morning, the 3rd of February, we start at Lehman Scott High School in Cayman Brac.
Wow.
And from there, the study period is over 3 weeks, and we go into every school that has, every high school in the Cayman Islands, including every school, public and private sector.
Without just generally speaking, I mean, we're looking at increasingly more and more sort of schools coming along as the population grows and the like. So you're sharing that all of the schools can participate or are participating?
Yes, all are participating, thankfully.
Well, yes, thankfully.
Yes.
And as I listened to you and as I've looked at the surveys over the years, I mean, what's a decade now of information? If I go back almost, 10
years.
Yeah, it's been a decade now. And that gives us a good way to look at statistics and see trends and see what, may have been the thing of choice initially. Is that still the thing? Where is that in relation to what students are experimenting, if that's the word to use today? It should give parents an opportunity to look and have a discussion, but it should give us as a nation, informed information to say, well, it's no longer a place of time for God. That thing that you read about in some big industrialized nation, well, it's right down in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Yes. At least information can be had if so it's selected. Right?
Yeah. You're speaking to parents. One of our programs is parents as preventers, and Brother Simon, you can speak to that.
We take that opportunity during those training sessions with parents to inform them, so they're abreast of what is happening in terms of what's trending, what young people are exposed to, what they're telling us from various, not only from the research but various focus groups that we run throughout the year.
If I may ask, and I say this carefully and respectfully, but consciously, in that sometimes someone's responding to questionnaires, surveys, or the like, we may or may not be forthcoming. We may exaggerate. That's just what we gather. In this instance, how confident are we in that that information that we get from our students about these things, they're spot on?
Well, we put in place some of the components that we put in place, or administrators, if you will, of the survey, are volunteers. These are not persons that are connected with the children. We ask that the staff is not present in the classroom while we conduct the survey. However, they can. But we do ask that the children, we do instruct them that if they do have a question in relation to the survey, that they raise their hand, and whomever is enumerating the classroom or the assigned classroom will answer any questions in relation to that. We also I guess some of the vernacular that is that we emphasize is asking the student to complete the survey form as accurately as possible, as opposed to the use of the word honest. It immediately, the word, it's nearly like a test setting, and some of the word use is what we use in order to help settle the young lady or the young man in completing the form, and trust that in us, in the setting, with the person, with the word instruction, that we will get as accurate as humanly possible. We can only take what we have, and we certainly make every effort to have a setting that is conducive to honesty.
Well, as we speak to Mr. McLean and Mr. Miller, I think something that you've shared is that you're trying to create, when you're getting information to students, a safe place for the students to give honest answers, understanding that it's confidential. It isn't about them individually, it's about trying to get a profile of what is affecting our community, affecting them as students. 4,000 plus students across the country. They're affected by so much.
Absolutely. And just to add to what my colleague and good friend Mr. McLean just said, when you're looking at data that's been collected since 1998, every 2 years, and you have trends in the world of research, that's rich data. And here in the Cayman Islands, we've always had a very high participation rate, and I'm sure Brother Ivan can speak about that in a second. So it speaks about the relationship that we've built, not only with students over the years or young people, but also these institutions which carry out the day-to-day work in forms of education and so forth with them. Not only is the data rich, like I said, but when you look at best practice and what happens, this is the best practice for collecting this sort of sensitive data that is used around the world. Now, this data is quantitative in nature, but when you pair what we find quantitatively with qualitative data, meaning what we see on the ground, it parallels, right? So we don't only just depend on the data, we also compare it with what we see, what school counselors are saying, what school administrators are saying, what the police is saying, social services are saying, the many counselors that we have around the island. And that's how we get a picture of what is really happening. And I will tell you, Sir Sterling, the numbers, although not 100% accurate, they are really understated. Because I've spent many years in many classrooms, working with many young people over the years, and they are understated.
Understated.
So that is the seriousness of the matter in our country.
Well, I'm grateful that you've put, the survey, the results from it online on your website. Very grateful to our colleague Ms. Cathy for printing off some things, and when I looked at what she shared with us, from the 2018 survey, with average age of first use for marijuana, for those in years 7 to 8, reported at 9 years of age. Now, for someone, we're thinking, wow, 9. This is in this country.
Yes.
Should it be something that we look to and try to figure out what is happening? And then, but I also like the fact that you ask questions. Well, if you're using a particular drug, whether it's alcohol or tobacco, whether it's legally available if you're of the right age, or whether it's still considered illicit, why are you using this thing? And as a parent, as an adult, if you're using these drugs, you're smoking the cigarette, you're drinking the alcohol, are these some of the same reasons why you're using them? Take the survey yourself, so to speak, to see how you respond. And it may be indicative. Just a thought.
Yeah. We do ask of the influence when we find, the questionnaire is designed in a manner that asks what influenced the choice of not using or using. So we do get there's a correlation with the action and reasoning. So we do get to look at that. One I'll go on. It slipped me that quickly. Sorry.
That's fine. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Breakfast is back! Yes, Saturday, February 1st, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center. Enjoy a tasty Caribbean breakfast of fried fish and fritters, liver and onions, and ackee and saltfish, starting at only $10, and help support your community. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman supports sight screening, prostate and colon cancer awareness, Miss Teen, spelling bee, and so much more. Get your Caribbean breakfast and support the Lions Club of Grand Cayman in their community efforts happening Saturday, February 1st, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center.
ValueMed Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop ValueMed for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us. A few more moments of the wonderful time of our friends from the National Drug Council, Mr. Simon Miller and his colleague, Mr. Evan McLean. The Cayman Islands, student drug use survey you shared starts next week, and the BRAC at the Lehman E. Scott High School.
Yes.
Well, share with us some more so we understand. And it's going to be a 3-week, over a 3-week process.
It's going to be a 3-week exercise, ending the Thursday, the 20th of February.
Mm-hmm.
And we will cover schools from Cayman BRAC, East End Street to West Bay and everything in between. that schools, students that fall into the year groups of 7 and 8, and then we study the 9 to 12 year group as one.
Okay.
We use different survey instruments also. There are some of the questions we don't ask the younger students, and but the older students we gather a little more detail.
If I may then ask respectfully, I can see the benefit without question, but just in case, let's say parents now have the survey results, even this latest one when this information is collated and but even the last one from 2018, because you do it every 2 years, right?
Yes, sir.
What would be your advice as to how parents could take some of this information, some of the what they call the little graphics that you have online, we can pull it down, look at it, it's very accessible. How could we utilize that, whether at the dinner table, whether in the drive-in to the mornings or the evenings or whenever we are with our children, to have discussions? How could we use this information?
Well, one of the things that we do, it's parents as stakeholders, the school as a stakeholder, government is a stakeholder. We have a number of stakeholders, including parents. So I say that to say that when the information is disseminated over the platform of stakeholders, it's a matter of sharing what we have and sharing it in a manner that is that makes sense, that we bring light to trends, things, and that would be things that are not necessarily normal, things that are happening. In 6 months, vaping is one of the big things, and that just came in the past year plus. That has become a near phenomena, and so those type things is what we do bring to light, and it's arming the student, it's arming the parent, it's arming the school. And the school translates that into their own programs. It helps to translate it into information that their own counselors can be aware of, and action in helping to assist students in better behavior, better practices.
Well, there are three things that when I looked at the information that you provided over the years, the notion that the reports indicate that for those students who drank, the high percentage who reported that they got that drink, and the students who fall within the school years, years 7 to 8, got it from a family member. Was about 56%. More than half of them said a family member. So we are given access. And they're not sneaking it; they're getting it from us.
Yes,
but equally, I was wondering to what extent. And I didn't mean to go back to compare it in the earlier surveys and the ensuing ones. What was the percentage increase in those who reported that they found more and more that they get into conversation with their parents? The latest one from 2018 said 75%, and indicated the parents were having these conversations about it. What was that in the first survey when compared to the second and to the latest one? Hopefully that's an increase in, as I think I recall. But it's important.
And one of the positive things to Sir Sterling along that point you just made was that students report that parents are the greatest influence in their life. So parents, good job. You're doing a great thing. Just keep arming yourself. Keep getting to know what this information means and how you could use it in a conversation. And to the point you made earlier, one of the simplest ways they could go about doing this is get the report. And if it's intimidating to you, then just pop into the National Drug Council and we can sit down and have a very lay conversation around this data and what it means, and then how you can bring that up in a conversation, or how you can use that within a setting if you're sitting at the dinner table or even having dinner one evening.
And I think too, as I listen to you, I'm recognizing that the whole conversation, maybe this may fall with some in an inappropriate manner, but I don't distinguish between, drugs and alcohol. I said alcohol and any other drug, because it's a drug. But because of just the way we term it, just our language, drugs, as if it's drugs, alcohol is a drug. Yes, it's legally available.
So is cigarette.
Right.
Nicotine is a drug.
Drug. Right.
Yes.
So even having that language and making a deliberate, conscious effort to classify it as what it is, a drug.
For sure. We look at licit and illicit drugs.
Yes.
Use, misuse, and abuse. Because you do have prescribed medication that students are at times sharing with other students, and that's misuse, the misuse part. When a student uses, illicit drugs, they're using illicit drugs, and the abuse. The abuse can also be that's licit, haven't been prescribed by a doctor but inappropriately used, and the illicit that is being abused by the child. So
having that discussion, I think, if parents are that great influence that we think parents are, are we consciously aware that sometimes our inaction could be as devastating as our actions? Are we sharing with the child in a way that is instructive, giving the child an informed perspective, or are we sending mixed messages? You just sometimes being a parent is a lot harder than they make it on TV.
Yeah.
One
of the things for sure, it's out of every 10 children, there's going to be one. Statistics show that. Even in adulthood, out of every 10, there's one fella or a gal that has an issue. And so it isn't a standard thing that if I speak to it, it's going to happen. They will act better, make better decisions, and this will never happen. That is not necessarily accurate. I don't know how to explain it other than for some of us, through a course of events, or it's just our makeup, we fall victim to abuse and then misuse, or misuse then abuse then addiction. And however we can build out in order to prevent that and or contribute to the awareness of. That's what we do. We study this group of young persons, and in doing that, we get to look at the age of a child, the gender of a child, the exposure of the child, the participation of a child, the choices. There is a range of choices. Was it to fit in, to feel good, to calm yourself down? That we can measure what a child's experience is in relation to the action. Right. So when we're doing that in the manner that we do, when a prevention specialist such as Mr. Miller shows up at a class, it's not just saying you shouldn't. We're saying this is what it is. This would be better choice. And the typical what we I guess we don't sugarcoat it. We real best prevention, don't do it. That is best prevention, and that's what we preach. That the bottom line, that's what we preach. But when you have students that are engaged in use, you have to. There's a need to approach it in a different manner.
I think too, giving people, especially young people, information. They may be smoking, drinking, they may be engaged in behavior without fully appreciating the concept. Yes, they've heard it before. And yes, yeah. But I'm still young. And they're perhaps a little bit more dismissive, cavalier, some would say. But give them the information, make them understand the factual implications, the potential ill effects to their health down the road. As you said, you're not sugarcoating, but you prevent them, from at least saying they didn't know. They've had accurate, timely information that allows them. So as participants, in their own sort of survey, informing them of their choices collectively as a population helps us to know how to best reach out with education and similar programs, right, Mr. Miller?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
I wish you, not just excellent participation, not just continued support from the volunteers and all the other stakeholders, but as parents in particular, and as schools and administrations, that we continue to be supportive and make the time. There are many demands, I know, in schools for that limited time within the allotted school day, but it's every 2 years. It's informative.
Yeah. Very much. And that is really the push this afternoon, Sir Sterling, to get some volunteers to come on board with us, because we're still a few short. Okay. We're still a few short. So
a little bit more than a few.
Yes.
We need some help. We do need, we definitely need 20 plus, nearly more like 30 volunteers. And it's a matter of 20 to 40 minutes of their time on a given day that we're conducting, and at a given school that we're conducting the survey, and 20 minutes to 40 minutes of their time to help build.
So you need the time to them to a lot. They need to go. So the employer, if they're self-employed, if they're retired, or self-employed, they need to carve out the time. What else do you need from that perspective, volunteer, in order to assist helping us collect this data?
We would complete the registration form, provide us also with a copy of your driver's license, and it would also entail participating in the approximately 30 minutes worth of training in informing the volunteer as to how we want the whole process conducted. And that is what it would entail, and someone that is available and willing.
It's a very painless process, Sterling. And I tell you, Brother Ivan has even went above and beyond and got some light refreshments. So those persons who can join us at the National Drug Council for a brief 30 minutes, at the end of their day, we truly would appreciate it.
When is the next training for those prospective volunteers?
This evening at 5:30.
Okay, today's Wednesday, 5:30 this evening?
Yes, sir. Thursday, 5:30, and Friday at 5:30.
So today, tomorrow, and Friday?
Yes, sir.
And the National Drug Council, for those who don't know,
is at the Caymanian Village on North Sound Road, 66 North Sound Road.
I will do one better, Sir Sterling. If there are individuals out there who cannot make it, we will come to you. I've always stressed this on any radio station. We'll come under coconut tree, Neesberry tree, doesn't matter, because we need the help. We can't do this. This exercise cannot happen if we don't have the volunteers.
As you shared, there's probably some of us who believe that administering or helping to administer this survey, it requires some great effort. I think it's a lot easier than you've shared.
Absolutely.
For the person you go in, there's a pamphlet or there's an envelope. You give them to the students. You don't do anything to influence. They fill it out. It's a bubble, sort of Scantron, like responses. You collect it, seal it up, and hand it into you guys.
That's exactly it.
Right.
You're armed with the envelope with the questionnaires. The enumerator would place the questionnaires on the student's desk, face down. At the typical start time is 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we ask them to start by turning it over and answering the questions as accurately as possible. When the student is finished, the enumerator can collect the form, or we can also ask to sit quietly until everyone's done, and we pass the envelope around, and everyone gets to put their own questionnaire inside the envelope, and it's sealed and then returned by the enumerator to the survey supervisor.
And your training for those prospective volunteers is just to instruct them as to the protocol.
Yes.
You don't inadvertently or deliberately influence the responses. You make sure the environment is created. You're just giving that person, hey, just the kind of thing. We want you to do it this way. Relatively easy, huh?
Yeah. The only influence we want to create there, man, is confidentiality.
Yep.
And that he or she can answer that as accurately as humanly possible.
All right. Okay. So National Drug Council this evening, tomorrow, and Friday, 5:30.
Yes, 5:30 to 6:00.
Caymanian Village.
Yes.
If not, Mr. Samuel will come to your office. Maybe there's the social committee at some organization. There's a group of employees in the building, whether they work for the same organization or not.
We will be there, sir. We will be there.
All right.
Yeah.
All
right. The number.
We're going to be training on Sunday in Cayman Brack. Sunday at 3:00 in the medical wing over at the Aston Ruddy Center.
All right. A safe flight.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I reckon it takes what it takes, and one of the things that we're grateful for is that the volunteers over in the Brack was willing to come out on Sunday, as it was the quickest time that we could get there to make it happen.
That's an amazing community over here. Their level of participation, their civic engagement.
Yeah.
It's hopefully something that we don't lose, but hopefully here on Grand Cayman will start to maybe incorporate more. I think we're slipping away because of the different reasons we all offer.
Yeah.
We're busy, we're this, we're that, and it's justifiable. But glad that the BRAC is still so engaged.
Yes.
All right. So for those who want to contact the NDC, maybe for query, email, WhatsApp, phone, walk in. What's the best, or what are some options?
You can call us on 949-9000. Or you can send us an email to info, that's info, @ndc.ky. Or you can email my good brother directly at imclean@ndc.ky.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Jensen. If it's a phone call or a quick reminder that we can offer up, let us know for those volunteers who are, accessible and available and are willing to. Well, a couple of minutes of your time can make a significant difference.
Sir Sterling, we truly thank you, sir, for giving us this opportunity to get the message out there.
It's a pleasure, sir. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I trust this will be another successful, survey. And again, I pray for travel mercies for you and your team.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Let's pause. When we come back, some open line, Ms. Susan. Highlights from yesterday. I don't know. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
All are invited to attend the 83rd Annual Convention of the Church of God Full Gospel Hall, Georgetown, from February 2nd through to the 9th. Daily prayer meetings at 6:30 a.m., preaching and praise at 10:30 a.m., and evangelistic services nightly at 7:15. Sundays begin with Sunday school at 9:45 a.m., followed by morning worship at 10:45, a youth service at 3 p.m., and evangelistic services at 7:15. Come and enjoy a warm Christian fellowship, praying, praising, and singing with church family at the 83rd Annual Convention of the Church of God Full Gospel Hall, Georgetown, on the waterfront from the 2nd to 9th of February. Free meals served daily and transportation is available by calling 926-8180.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. It's some open line. And at 2 o'clock, our schedule indicates that we have the excellent company of our good folks from the Scholarship Secretariat. It isn't that we're unaware of yesterday's events, and I'll get to that in a second, but we still need to make sure that those prospective applicants for overseas scholarships are mindful that the deadline is on Friday. It ends at the 31st of January. The Scholarship Secretariat, not only under sort of this programs, but I've been publicly reminding that the deadline is approaching, so we want to share with you. But until then, let's have some open line. And first off, again, I trust and pray that everybody is safe, that as you're out and about and you're evaluating your businesses, your homes, that there's nothing structurally unsound, that you're not ignoring the psychological, the mental, and other sort of health issues. Some are sharing, they still feel a bit dizzy. They were feeling it after. They're still having a bit of a headache. They felt it after. Well, don't ignore those things, and don't be overly concerned that you were alarmed and maybe you panicked. Maybe this was a good training ground. It's a way to perhaps gauge how you respond. Some of us will quickly, as I say, fight or flight. Others will see people nearby, people they know. Sometimes people they're just acquainted with. Sometimes people they don't know, and their instinct is to immediately respond and offer aid and assistance. Others are just what I say, every man for himself and God for us all. So it takes all kinds, apparently. But for whatever happened, what are some of your thoughts in relation to yesterday's event? What is sort of your thoughts going forward? We have a hurricane, and chances are we can prepare somewhat. Occurrences like yesterday, thank God, aren't too frequent. They are immediate. They can be a bit shaken. No pun intended. They can cause you to panic. It can cause you to be alarmed and greatly concerned, not just during the occurrence, but for an extended period thereafter. And of course, as you recognize the movements of people trying to maybe get to loved ones, their children at school, their families at home or other places, well, the roads can get even more congested. Some obviously express concern that if you're looking, back and forth along, well, I still call it the West Bay Road, there are two, tunnels. They can dress it up and call it overpasses and this and that and the next thing, but it looks like a tunnel to me. You got to go in one end, out the next, and for a period of time there's little or no exit other than one end or the other. Now, thankfully, it's not like those tunnels that go under large deep bodies of water or through mountains and the like, but for a long distance there's still a tunnel. Well, what if they collapse? Not just the loss of life and potential injury to people and the like, but the passage back and forth. And then, of course, if you live in West Bay and you have to go back and forth, well, we now have a bridge. Wonderful engineering feat. Good for those who were involved in it. Gives them a chance to practice their education and maybe get a little experience, and who knows, do something they haven't done before or haven't done in a long time. But that collapses, well, where does that leave everybody else who has to go back and forth? I say that to share, when we're looking at other sort of infrastructure projects, roads in particular, what concerns are there? Some of you have said, well, that iconic tower at 50 or 150 or 250 feet or stories or whatever height, we're now at 10 or 13 or 15 stories, depending on what we're looking at. Is this going to be something that we reconsider? Is it going to be now that we're going to overly engineer and make it prohibitively costly to build a house, to extend, or the like. Where will this take us? Will some now find the biggest sledgehammer to crack the smallest nut? We'll see. Let's hit the phones. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hey, good afternoon to you, Sterling.
Good afternoon, my good friend. How are you today?
Boy, I'm a bit wobbly.
You are? Man. Sorry to hear that, boy. You like many.
Boy, we give thanks. We give thanks.
Amen, right?
I know you and I were communicating right afterwards, but we give thanks, bro.
Man, listen, I'm glad to know that's something that we still do.
Yeah, man. I saw the video with you. You look pretty scared yourself, man.
Boy, you should smell it, man. I mean, you should see it.
Poor Susan, you would try and get her. Stop it. Go to a commercial.
Yeah, boy. It's.
I'm glad we can laugh about it, man.
We have to, man. We have to.
When we put all in perspective in terms of the size, we certainly can only give thanks and laugh at the times that are funny,
Yeah.
What I'm calling for though is not too funny.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard it and you're gonna hear about it. But Dwayne, I am trying to remain calm in speaking. I'm going to be as specific, but as a 616 because I can't. I'm just. I think yesterday we would have had a horrible event had the good Lord didn't keep the seas at bay.
Mm-hmm.
Are we happy that we had the interruptions of the emergency broadcast systems on the radio when it did happen? Yes, but even that needs to improve, and there'll be time for that. I'm sure everybody's examining it, but we need to talk about it because the truth is that we obviously see that our plans isn't just that system. We need, or certainly it doesn't just include that system, that we have to get as specific as we can, like we do for the hurricanes and stuff. The warning system, Dwayne, I don't think that interruption thing is all we should have in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We need some way of being able to advise the masses. When I can think about driving on the road just to try to make it to my 76-year-old mom and to try to get her to a higher ground once the warning was issued, once I'd found out where my daughter was at. When I saw the amount of people on the road and I was trying to tell people as I go by, you need to find your nearest structure. It was complete pandemonium. I saw those students on the John A. Cumber Primary School field and I wanted to pile 6 of them in my car to take them with me, because I was like, where are they going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And so the plans have to be very specific. They have to be specific to each school. If the schools have a second floor, that's now where they're going, assuming that we survived the initial event, that is the initial shaking.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have to think about, most of the primary schools, for example, are in the districts, and they are near other structures. So we have to start thinking about actually approaching these structures to say, you're part of the, tsunami plan, I think about all of those condos and stuff along the 7 Mile Beach. Now, mind you, they're on the beach, but most of them are multi-story and heavily cemented. And so part of our national plan has to include structures like that. Maybe the southern end of West Bay or includes, and people can go to those, and those people know that they can get there. It was very disheartening for me to hear this morning on the way to work is when I heard Kenneth Bryan, MLA Kenneth Bryan, called into the morning show and talk about the people of Central going to the government administration building. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I take it that it's true since it's coming from MLA Kenneth Bryan that it happened, and obviously somebody communicated it to him that they were turned away. Now, again, pandemonium. We need to come up with a better plan, but we need to start with that siren system. I don't know why we ruled that out. I don't know why we overruled that. This has been the second event where we needed mass communications, and people were just standing in the streets, not knowing where to go. And listen, let's just face it.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid, given the magnitude and size, buildings could have come down. We could have had power stations out. We could have had the phone companies out. So how are we going to get emergency systems to people? At least that one I don't think requires a whole lot more except for its own battery generator and some wires. Maybe they'll tell me differently. But we need some way of being able to fire off a siren, and that's the only reason why we do it. Whether we restrict it to just a tsunami warning so that there's no doubt There's no more thing about is it true or not true, and even the schools then have a plan, and parents don't have to worry because the sirens has gone off. They know the schools are already activating their plans for moving our children to higher ground. There needs to be something concrete, bro.
Yeah, I hear you. If I could maybe just ask two things. To your knowledge, are all of the schools closed today?
By understanding, yes, that was the announcement I heard this morning. I did see something where I believe it was Truth for Youth. I could be wrong.
The reason why I'm asking is that, given the understanding that not all the schools are closed today, it's just a question. Should it be mandatory that in the event of something like this that all the schools are closed, or they all remain open, or the structural assessment of thing? Is it the ignorance and the arrogance and insolence of some people in the administration who believe that they'd be all and end all and they can decide what because it's just another day, we compel you to be here, right?
Yeah, well, I suspect that's the case in the case of things like our warning system, siren systems. And we had one event that took place at night. In terms of the schools, I can't say that given that the Truth for Youth, which is the only one that I actually saw somebody who actually posted saying that Truth for Youth was open. That's a private school. I would hope that they had everybody in to evaluate the schools and stuff. But government at least took the precautions to ensure that was the case. Whether that's a blanket thing from an education department standpoint, perhaps so. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Now, since you and I didn't, but thank you. I mean, I didn't want to just look at one school. It's just generally speaking, as you talk about the safety of our young people, right? In the case with Truth Youth, they made a public announcement. They went through, so as you said, a small school in terms of population size, and their press release or their announcement said, they've went through, they've assessed it, and they know what they have and the structure of the sound, But that apart, I guess what I was thinking of is in relation to your comment, in that, what are we looking at for our buildings and our roads? How are we going to respond? Not just advising people with a warning system of sorts, but after the consequence, there could be unknown sort of deficits in our roads that we don't see,
If there was any second event in terms of the ocean, you're talking about?
Well, yeah, or even another aftershock or sort. I mean, all sorts of things. There could be a.
Well, I think that there are two things when I think about it, Dwayne. I mean, or a few things in regard to that. We can only plan for as far as what we are aware of. In terms of the outcomes after that, as we know through Ivan, we can't. And so the responses are going to be different based on the level of threat, and certainly based on the actual event and the aftermath of that. So I could be in a particular building, as it was in Ivan, and I didn't have my roof leaking and had to go up on my counters and stuff. Others could do that. I could make it to the West Bay shelter in the after hours and try to assist there since I was part of the plan, but other people couldn't do that. And so you can't plan for those particular parts. But doing what we can do is we can get a mass communication system that allows for the country to have no doubt, and people are not scrambling, either going to the radios. I mean, you guys were at threat if we weren't. I know the radio came on, and at least you got a second floor, but you guys are in the studios trying to make warnings and stuff. What happens if you guys needed to move up and the communication system is down? We need to have a plan that says, you hear the siren, that means stop what you're doing, and everybody should be seeking higher ground, and that's it. What happens after that, then we'll go from there, because we can't predict whether, how far in it's going to be. Because here's the other part of that. When I talk about a holistic plan, forgive me, it's not me playing the music, it's a car next to me. But here's what I thought about as well, since you talked about that. The emergency broadcast systems, we have to get very specific with those as well. It's quite obvious that they were computerized, so whether they were typed in and somebody typed them in and then the system announced them. I remember that whether it was leading up to Ivan or after Ivan, I believe it was after Ivan when we were getting so many, before Ivan, when we were getting so many threats of hurricanes. For a long time, I don't know if you can take your mind back then, but I remember, because I was part of the National Hurricane Committee's plans, it used to annoy me that we would be getting these briefings that were coming from North America, and our announcements in Cayman sounded a bit like this. This may jog a memory. The National Hurricane Center in Miami has said that so-and-so, so-and-so, and we started saying, but can you make that more specific to us? We started asking the National Hurricane Committee, can you guys as experts translate that on the ground for the people in Cayman. What does that mean for us? And start speaking to us from that level. We need to get very specific then on the warning systems, even this modern day one that we have here. It can't come up with this very sterile kind of okay, we've had an earthquake. Well, we all knew that. Or what does that mean? And I know it says, please move away from the coastline. That sounds like language, like when you're living in California and you're on the coastline. All of Cayman is on the coastline.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be very specific. People, there's a warning. We ask you, everyone should be seeking higher ground. Not nobody on the coastline, everyone, because Cayman is just that small. So we need to that's what I mean. We need to fine tune it. This is not a complaint. This is talking about the actual event that we experienced yesterday, and we really need to get that siren system. I need to stop hearing this foolishness about, I don't know what it is, why we decided not to do it, but there could be stuff where our emergency broadcast systems are down and people are left wondering whether they need to go to higher ground or not, man. That's my thoughts, bro. And I pray that these aftershocks that we're continually feeling don't affect too many people too much, and they recognize that it is traumatic, and that if you need to really speak to somebody in order to kind of help take the edge off, do so,
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you too, man. And look out for a quick call from me. I just want to ask your guidance on the sign I see posted along a route that we travel.
No problem, bro.
All right.
I heard you. Thank you too.
Not a problem. Talk to you.
Bye.
All right. Well, appreciate it. And with the direction with Susan, where are we heading? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Of course, you can WhatsApp 925-3261. We do have an opportunity to speak with Dr. Nicole Thompson shortly about the overseas scholarships. She's going to tell us, from the scholarship secretariat, she'll keep us informed. Now, as the caller prior shared, and as we were, sort of reflecting on yesterday, it's maybe a lot more as individuals we can do. Hazard management over the years have said to us, do you have a plan, an individual plan, a family plan? In these times, it's not just the hurricane, it's the other things that could affect us. Well, we're pausing, Ms. Susan. When we come back, more talk today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on Island.
Generations present. Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
An update from Sister Islands MLA and Tourism Minister, the Honourable Moses Kirkconnell. An initial report from the Sister Islands is that there was no loss of life and all government buildings are currently being assessed for structural damage. The minister thanked District Administration and Public Works Department under the leadership of Commissioner Ernie Scott and Works Manager Justin Bodden, as well as all the civil servants and public servants on the BRAC who quickly put into action the emergency plan while staying safe. As of this morning, Cayman Airways is back to business as usual, and all flights to the Sister Islands are on as scheduled. Water service remains off in several areas following yesterday's 7.7 magnitude quake. Walkers Road, south of Catara Street, South Church Street, Windsor Park, and South Sound. The Water Authority says crews are continuing to assess the situation in each of the areas and are working to identify the leaks so that repairs can be made and service restored. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And, I love the diligence, the determination, the commitment of our civil servants. And we recognize that as part of our sort of ongoing endeavor, we schedule in order to ensure that people are timely informed. I do appreciate, and on behalf of our colleagues here, not only within Radio Cayman, but across the civil service, that, yes, we could be talking about yesterday's events more, but sometimes it's better to stick to the program to ensure that people are informed, because as we welcome Dr. Nicole Thompson from the Scholarship Secretariat, the deadline is the 31st, which is Friday.
Friday, exactly.
And there are probably people with questions, and as much as they're trying to get so their heads wrapped around yesterday and figure out all the things, this deadline is going to come and pass. And if they don't get the scholarships in because of something, you can't send a note into the teacher and say, please excuse for not wearing PE uniform today because it got wet in the rain. That's what we did when we were small, right?
Well, that's the thing, because the process has actually been open since the 15th of November last year. So we always give people ample time to get all their documents together to complete the process. And we are available. We have been fielding a lot of calls, emails, etc. And we have that as a priority. So once somebody reaches out or they sends an email to say, okay, I'm having an issue with the site, we actually as administrators can go on and see what the issue is and deal with it and get them moving along very quickly.
Well, if I may, and if it's not that I should, then tell me now so the public so I don't do that ever again. But we've got a couple of calls off and on air. People send through things, asking questions. We've responded to your offices and say, hey, we got a question. You guys have been so gracious to respond back to us and say, listen, for that question, here's the answer. And that has been instructive. And I think I say that to share that people are genuinely interested in getting accurate information. But you guys have been deliberate, very diligent, and so responsive in a timely manner to provide accurate information, and it's been helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you. I just asked the questions. And I think, it is not just the parents, because at the end of the day, we want our students, our children, to be mature, to be independent, to be responsible. But we also want to be able to be helpful, and to watch the students engage. And I've had a couple of students ask, well, hey, you know about this? I'm like, no, not so much. And it's great. It's helpful.
Yeah, we have actually gotten a lot of calls from parents who are assisting, quote unquote, their offspring with completing the process. But again, one of the key parts of our application is stage 2. That's the one I always plug because I love that part, which is the personal statement, which is where the applicant kind of details why they should be given a scholarship, how what they're studying will benefit the Cayman Islands, etc. And even when parents are saying, okay, I'm going to help my child complete, I always encourage them to let the child do that part, or let the applicant do that part. Because that is where they kind of clarify exactly what it is they're going to study, why they want to study this, how this is beneficial. And it's always a good process, because oftentimes you may think, oh yes, I want to be this or I want to do that. But being forced to go through that thought process and kind of itemize and really write down, this is what I intend to do. I think that's very helpful in terms of clarity. The other thing that's very important is that our applicants need to know what they're going to study in the institution they've chosen. We just had a conversation earlier with Ms. Steen, and she was very detailed in terms of what she wants to study, and we were remarking, gosh, she has done the research, because that's what we want them to do. If you have a university you like, do the research, find out what their programs are about, how are they examined, when are they examined, how are they tested, what do you have to write essays? Do you have to do multiple choice? What is it you'll be doing there? Is it practical? Do you have work experience? All these things are critical in terms of the choice of the institution. And all those things will come out as you go through our application process.
And at the end of the day, as much as parents that we want the best for our children, it is the child who's going to be at the school.
They're going to be the ones out there doing the actual work, yes. So it's important for them to know what they're getting into. And we have actually had instances where after a year, after a semester, a student comes back and says, you know what, Miss Nicole, that's not what I thought it would be.
I think too, though.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It happens.
Thank you for understanding, because sometimes the brochure isn't what the vacation promised, no? And
very true.
That happens. But again, the student is invested, and as the student sort of gets comfortable with the process. Now, today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, somewhat, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, it's actually a little, I will admit it's a little scary for us at this point, because we have over 150 persons who are still in stage 1. Your daughter went through this last year, so you know there are 5 stages to the process. So we have some people who have a lot of work to do in the next couple of days. We do warn them. Often persons would say, oh, the site is down. We actually have no control over that. It's an external provider. So that is why we have given you since the 15th of November. So if something goes wrong, we can't control that. It may be that people flood the site at 11:50 p.m. on the 31st, the night of the 31st. We won't be in office. We can't help you. There is nothing that can happen at that point. So please get your stuff in long before that.
Yeah, well, and it's encouraging. I think, good to see parents involved in the process, but having the child draw alongside. Now, it's for the process. It's 5 stages that you share, and stage 1. Well, then there must be stage 2 and 3. Yeah. You progress
through the process. Yeah, and often persons have asked, "Oh, can I jump ahead?" And we always have to explain the reason why we have gone this route is that over the years, it became that persons were not providing enough information to be reviewed and to be shortlisted. The process we have now forces them to provide information that we can review. Because it's one thing to say, oh, I want to go off to school, but you haven't provided us with your grades, you haven't shown us that you have actually applied to the school, you haven't shown that you have done any research. When it comes time for us to determine if you can be considered, if there isn't enough information, then we'll have to mark you incomplete.
Okay. Dr. Nicole Thompson, from that perspective, and I'm just trying to think back and preparing for the discussion, looking at the stages and remembering over the years, right? The school that you've decided on. Some schools can't give you an acceptance letter.
And that's fine. Okay. Right. We actually, and I'll just go through some of the things that may pop up in the different stages based on the questions you've been getting a lot. In stage 1, which is just the demographic information, you tell us about yourself, etc., where you live. The main questions we get on that is in terms of the references. You can move past without getting your academic and your personal reference at that particular time. Those are not mandatory documents to be uploaded at that time. They need to come into us, and we recognize that you may have requested a reference from someone who has not yet provided it. So we are not going to hold you responsible for that. A lot of persons have been sending the references directly to us, and that's fine. We've been saving it, and it will be added to your file. So you don't need those in order to move ahead. However, you do need to have proof of the right to be Caymanian. You do need to have your birth certificate. The proof of the right to be Caymanian is another one that gets a little tricky. This discussion came up, I think, was last year or the year before, and it was very contentious. We're not even going there this time.
Only because it's you, I won't go there.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Sherry, you're lucky.
But yeah, that is something that we need. And I mean, one of the reasons is that that's the basic requirement for the scholarship. Another requirement that's been a little bit tricky in stage 1 is the proof of domicile. The law actually states that you need to be resident on the island at least 5 years prior to applying. Now, we do have cases where applicants are overseas in school. That's fine, because if they're overseas in educational pursuits, that's fine. But it can't be that you've been living and working overseas and now you're suddenly applying for a scholarship. So in many cases, proof of domicile can actually be met by your transcript because it shows that for the past few years, this is what I've been doing. So sometimes people panic a little bit at that line, and we say you can just write a letter that says, I've been overseas studying at this university, or you detail what you've been doing. If there is a question, still submit it, and during the review, we can always reach out to you if there's further clarification, or it can go to council for review. Stage 2, as we said, is the personal statement, which is just information that you're entering as you think about the scholarship. Stage 3 is your transcript, so that's what you have from the school or wherever you're attending most recently. We understand that final transcripts are not available, but wherever you are up to this point, you have something. If it's up to what you did in September to December, then you can submit something. There must be some record of what you have achieved thus far academically.
You request that from the school?
Yes, you can get that from the school. And again, that's to be uploaded. There's also information to write in. So it can't be, I don't have my final transcript, so I'm not putting in anything. We recognize that finals are not yet available, so send what you have so far. So that, again, is not stopping you from moving forward. Stage 4 gets into the institutions you're thinking of. In the past, we have had students give us a list of 10 institutions. No, we have narrowed it down to 3. Prioritize. So you're looking at what the degree is that those schools offer that you like, what the costing is, and we really want people to start to think about the overall cost of education. Tuition is one, but you also have room and board, airfare, depending if it's a cold climate, clothing. I see you nodding your head. And that's one of the things. We have a university cost spreadsheet, and we really want persons to think about the overall cost. It's not just tuition. It's way more than tuition. It's that phone plan that you never think of. It's those laundry bills that you have to pay that you never think of. It's that taxi, that Uber, that Lyft that you're taking. So all those things need to be factored in, and we want people to think about those things in the process.
I'll offer this from some other, and this is where I think as parents we can help each other.
Yeah.
Parents shared that, and then another parent shared something similar. One case was the child's at school somewhere, and the best way to get from there to the airport is using a particular means. It's not a connecting flight. That was a cost that nobody thought of. How do you get from A to B so that you can catch the flight to get the flight to get home at some point? And it may be $50, it may be $200. It's like what I'm told, taking a taxi from West Bay to East End sometimes can be a couple $100 at times, right? If you come to a hotel. Factor those things in.
Yes, that's one of the things we want you to think about, and that's why all that is part of the process. Stage 5 is our means testing area, where we look at the financial means of the family. And again, we require, most of our applicants for the undergraduate scholarships are students now out of school, high school. So we are looking at their parents being the responsible parties. So therefore, we are asking for financial information for the parents. Mainly we look for the job letter, and we have a declaration from them. But we also want them to do some evaluation of their financial means. So it will be what their total assets are, what their total liabilities are, and then to work out what their net worth will be.
Okay. If we may ask then, two things, and then we'll go to a break and we'll come back. But first, bank references. There's something that in the past people used to do. We need, as parents in this case, or as applicants, if we're to apply to a bank for a bank reference?
No, we've actually removed the bank reference. All we are using now is a job letter and a declaration from the parent that says the information I'm provided is honest and true.
Okay. And then when we come back, there are some families that may have physical assets, properties, undeveloped properties or the like. How would that fit into the calculation for the net worth and the threshold? Can we talk a little bit about that, so that this aspect, it could be asset rich and cash poor, right?
Yeah.
No, we're not. We're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately.
And that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you can afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu, starting at just $3.50, gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shedden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value menu, the deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
For the record. For the record, a fresh approach for information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. K-Man Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The K-Man Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. And Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Breakfast is back. Yes, Saturday, February 1st, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center. Enjoy a tasty Caribbean breakfast of fried fish and fritters, liver and onions, and ackee and saltfish, starting at only $10, and help support your community. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman supports site screening, prostate and colon cancer awareness, Miss Teen, spelling bee, and so much more. Get your Caribbean breakfast and support the Lions Club of Grand Cayman in their community efforts happening Saturday, February 1st, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. We're talking about overseas scholarships. The deadline is Friday. and from the scholarships secretary, Dr. Nicole Thompson. Hey, thanks for sharing. I know parents, students, applicants in general, whether they're the mature student, these things can be testing. But we get through it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm glad the process isn't what it... when I was applying way back when, you know, back then you just... No, just kidding. It seemed hard. You guys make it easy now.
Well, we try our best. We do have, and the thing is, once they use the online application, their documents are there. They show it's delivered once they submit. We have heard stories of persons coming years ago and dropping things at the government building and saying, "Oh, I dropped in my application," and nobody has any record of it. So this method actually ensures that everything they've uploaded is in a secure location, and it can be audited. So there's an audit trail, there's a paper trail. We know exactly what's happening.
Well, I must share that I did hear those stories, but thank God, even 1,000 years ago when I applied, the reception, the assistance that I received,
excellent.
It was amazing. I dropped something off, never once anything went astray.
Very
I
good.
request. The only challenge I had was EIDB, a fellow by the name of Ronald Carrington, most egregious young chap who a really, really hateful little fellow, but anyway. Short people sometimes, you know.
Okay, that's a different conversation.
That was a different conversation. But the other team there and everybody else. And this is why I think champion education is important for me. You got to do the work. We were asking the idea of maybe the net worth calculation and how to respond to that. Because just generally speaking, I know some of us may have some assets. When we put it in, I know there's a means test. Well, what does that mean? Can you shed any light at all? Help us, guide us if you can.
I'll try my best. What we want people to be is honest. So if it is that you do have significant assets and so on, and you're providing that information, great. We can't say off the bat that it will be a complete no, because every case can be treated as an individual situation. Persons may have a significant amount of land, and they may not be in a position, or we shouldn't require them essentially to sell that in order to fund their education. So what we want most of all is for people to be upfront. We don't want to have someone to say, "Hey, but we suspect something else is going on there." We want people to be as upfront as possible, and we will deal with it on a case-by-case basis. That's the most we can say at
I
this
appreciate
point.
that. And I think as people, we sometimes make a sacrifice. You bought a property way back when. Maybe it was a good deal. We see inflation and the values go up. But why, as you shared, should you be, if it wasn't your part of your financial plan, sell it now in order to fund the education. Thankfully, some families have done that because they believe it was worth it. But apply it and then let the council decide.
Yes, that will be a decision that's made by Education Council.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
A question, I was trying to find how it was worded because I thought it was worded nicely. It was a little bit jovial. But the gist was, could you upload in the stages, upload a document, and then at some point in time, I want to replace that. Maybe I want a newer version of it. Maybe it's the personal statement. Otherwise, before the final submission, can you then take that document down, that photograph even, and upload a nicer one, a better one, a more
most definitely. Even if you have already submitted, you can change your documents, but you have until the 31st of January because the site isn't locked. From the 1st of February, we actually locked the site because what we want at that point is to freeze what's there. If you have anything that you want to change after that, then we require that you email it directly to us. Because during the review process, we actually download and review every single applicant, all their documents, to confirm what's written there. So it is a very detailed process. And I just want to take a few minutes to talk about what happens next.
Yes, well.
Yeah. Once you have submitted, what we start from the time the 1st of February comes in, we actually start the review. So we're going to start first by pulling down, as an Excel spreadsheet essentially, all the persons who have started an application for the 2019-2020 year. Those who have not submitted, so that is if you're stuck at stage 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you will receive an email saying that you're incomplete, which is why we tell persons do not leave it for the last minute. Those who receive an email that's incomplete, we can't do anything more for you for that year. You're going to have to reapply because we actually archive all the applications. Those who have submitted, they will start getting regular emails from us about different things. And I just want to indicate to persons, please check your email regularly. That's going to be our means of communication. Oftentimes, because it may be coming through an external source such as Fluid Review, it may be in your spam, it may be in your junk. Check for those emails. Those who are doing undergraduate studies, we do have an interview process. So we will be communicating with you at different stages about that. So you need to keep on top of your emails. What we don't want is for students to miss opportunities because they have missed an email that may be asking for information or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's not an immediate, oh yes, I'm done. The process is actually now beginning.
Just getting started.
Oh yeah, and it starts a whole new process for us. But we really want to let students know that we're pushing forward with the interview process and the conditional approvals, and we're really looking to get those out sooner rather than later. And then we recognize that a conditional approval does not automatically mean you qualify because there may still be academic criteria to be met.
Right.
But you can be conditionally approved pending the academic criteria that's required for your scholarship.
Okay. I certainly hope that it won't confuse the process, but are there any things, medical, reference, anything at all that if the applicant does not have at the end of the 31st, has anything else, you can still submit and you would not be excluded?
Right. The references are probably the most important thing. Those are still trickling in, as I said, because in many cases they're coming from third parties. Right. So you may have asked John Brown to do a reference for you, a personal or an academic. He sends it directly to us. In terms of the medical, and we got a lot of calls on this, I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. We actually changed the system up a bit this year because we realized medicals are quite expensive. So what we said is that, yes, we have heard those. What we said is that we wouldn't request a medical until the applicant has been shortlisted. So for example, whereas before the medical was actually a key part of stage 1, you may have persons who made it to stage 3, may have provided the medical, but in the end they were incomplete. So we have removed that requirement from that stage. So only after they have submitted, after we've reviewed and we believe that they should be shortlisted for consideration for a scholarship, then we request the medical documents.
Okay. Yeah. See that, and this is where I think as we refine and enhance
it's
the
a process. Yeah.
All right. Well, the main thing is the deadline is Friday.
Yes.
Is there anything that you could share, anything more you could share with prospective applicants to be able to make sure they get this complete? They spent some time putting it together. They've done their personal statements. They've done a lot of things. They want to get off to school. They want to study. At least they want to get through, this hurdle of submitting an application. Well,
hopefully they've already submitted. If they haven't and they are going through any challenges, one of the concerns we're having as well is that persons are saying the website is down. Within our office, we all have access to the site as administrators. And oftentimes when we check, it's not down. It can be like a firewall based on where they are, or it can actually be the browser they're using at that particular time. So we would then go on. We actually have a back-end view as to their account to see where they are, what's going on with them. So that's why we keep saying, if you have any issues, reach out to us. Okay? We can go in as administrators and check and see what may be preventing you from moving forward. So again, I don't know how to reiterate it anymore. Reach out to the Scholarship Secretariat.
Well, I know Dr. Shari had shared, and I think someone else, when they finished and they wanted to submit, look for the button to actually hit submit.
Yes. And we sometimes have people calling and say, well, I think I submitted, but I'm not sure. Can you double check? Yeah. We can't double check all your documents, but we can definitely check and say, yes, okay, it's been submitted. Yeah. And once they submit, they should also get an email. We actually have it set up. So there's an automatic email that comes to you that says, you have submitted your application. We will be in touch with you further, etc. Again, check your email. It may have gone to spam. It may have gone to junk. So if you think, yes, I've hit that submit button and I'm good, and you don't see an email, check in your junk or your spam email. And if you still don't see anything and you're still panicking, give us a call or send us an email. We'll check for you.
All right. Well, it's one of those things I think where you share that, once the 1st of February rolls around, it's now, I guess, the anxiety in a sense builds in. Your team have a lot of work to do with processing. The applicants are waiting with bated breath as it is. Well, what's going to happen now?
But what we want them to do is, once they have submitted, the process is ongoing at our end. They have done all they can do at this point. What they need to focus on is making sure that they meet all the academic requirements. Because in many cases, as I said, most of our applicants are undergraduate coming out of high school. They still have exams to do to make those grades. They still have to get those GPAs. They still have to get those acceptance letters, etc. So that's what we need them to focus on at this point. They've submitted. They've done their part. They need to make sure that, and what we need them to be aware of as well is what does their university require in terms of their academic achievement. In some cases, they may meet ours, but they may not meet the universities. So, for example, if your university requires 3 A's at A level, our requirement is 3 C's. That's our minimum. So you may get the 3 C's from us, but you still may not get into your school. So you have to focus on what does my university require me to get, my top choice in order to get in. So focus on your studies at that point.
Could I flip it around? What if the university you want to go to for whatever reason says all you need is this, this, and this to get in, but the requirements for the scholarship is a little bit more challenging?
Right. So again, because the scholarship right now is academic, we have a base. So in some cases, students may get accepted, as you said, in an institution that has a lower requirement, but they may not meet our requirement. And that happens. What has happened this year is that we have actually allowed students to self-fund their studies partially. And once they, after their first year or their first semester, once they have achieved the required GPA that we have, then they can continue on scholarship.
Okay.
So it's no doors closed. So definitely don't step back and say, oh, and please don't stop and say, oh, I'm never going to get it. Sometimes we have persons who are very defeatist and they're like, oh, I'm not even going to apply because I'm never going to get it. A question we get a lot is, what's the upper age for scholarships? There is no upper age.
What's your life?
Exactly. Learning is lifelong. I mean, there is no upper boundary. So persons at any age can apply. And even those who are looking at online study, because frequently persons have their bachelor's degree already, they may be looking to do a master's, a PhD, etc. And they want to do that via online study. The online application, it has to be at the overseas time because the overseas scholarship refers to overseas institutions. So even though you're not physically going overseas, once your institution is overseas based, then this will be the scholarship. And just a quick plug, local scholarships open on March the 1st to April 30th. Yeah, so that's going to be the next big thing coming up.
And that covers all the institutions here?
Yeah, locally. So that's UCCI, ICCI, UB Open Campus, Truman Bodden Law School, and also students who are looking at doing A-levels, IB program, advanced placement programs, BTech.
Perfect.
Cape. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dr. Nicole. And we'll do our best to try to remind people
over the next few days.
2 days. But the deadline is Friday the 31st, midnight. So if you don't mind me saying, hopefully it won't cause more people to access, take advantage of your wonderful hospitality by your team, Dr. Shari, all of the wonderful people there. You guys have been very, 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 very helpful.
Thank you.
So,
and thanks for having us on and providing us with a forum to address the public.
Every time, anytime. And I commend the government, the private sector, those individuals who continue to invest in fund education. There are a lot of demands on our resources. I don't believe there's that many that are as important. But that's just my statement. Not meant to be political otherwise. But education is, as you said, lifelong learning. So thank you so much. And hopefully those students there will see the importance of it and continue to invest.
We hope so.
Well, be safe. Enjoy the rest of this day and what the week has to offer.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, again, to all those, thank you so much for yesterday. And come back tomorrow. Right? It's Thursday already, Miss Susan, tomorrow? Wow. So that means, right, tomorrow is Thursday. I think today must be Wednesday. All right. Well, you have to be until Friday and to get Mr. Hart's for the record. But until then, be blessed.